Hi, the film I watched last night and wanted to see for some time was Torture Garden, the last of the Amicus anthology horror movies that I hadn't yet seen. Amicus was a film studio operated in the UK in the 60s and 70s, I think into the start of the 80s. And their signature productions were, while Hammer was making gothic stories of Frankenstein and Dracula, Amicus would make horror anthologies with a present day setting. The first was Dr. Terror's House of Horrors in 1965, which had an all-star cast, and this was their follow-up to get American financing. It cast Burgess Meredith as this film's storyteller, and Jack Palance in a supporting role, as well as Peter Cushing and Michael Ripper, who are stalwarts of British horror films at the time. The structure of the film is that a group of people arrive in a particular location, and they each have their fortunes told in some way, each of which end in their death in some macabre fashion. And in this version, it's some kind of carnival exhibit. They're shown around a house of horrors, and then people with a special interest can pay an extra £5 to be shown the strings of fate and see a vision of their possible future. So we then get four stories. In the first of them, we see a man planning to get hold of his uncle's lost treasure, which turns out to be cursed by a witch involving a man-eating cat. In the second, a ambitious young actress discovers that the reason why the big stars in Hollywood last so long is because they've all got android bodies. In the third, a woman's romance with a famous pianist is menaced when it turns out that the piano he plays has other ideas. And in the final story, an obsessive collector of Edgar Allan Poe material meets the world's leading Poe expert and discovers that he has in his cellar the ultimate piece of Poe memorabilia, the resurrected author himself, now cursed forever to turn out new stories. It's a surprisingly, it's not a particularly long film. It's a little over 90 minutes, but it only has four stories, whereas the other films generally have five, and they feel exceptionally drawn out and slow. The lack of pace is really quite startling compared to the other films in the series. And as a result, it's actually, I think, by some margin, the worst. Burgess Meredith as Dr. Diablo, the sort of overall storyteller, I think is quite fun, and he's clearly fresh from the set of the Batman TV show. Some of the supporting performances are odd. The leads in the four stories vary. Michael Bryant, who I've seen in BBC productions, is almost unrecognisable with short hair as the man cursed by a witch. And rather bizarrely, we have Jack Palance, best known for playing villains in westerns, playing playing a role earmarked very obviously for Christopher Lee. He looks like Gregory Peck with greased back hair and a thin moustache and smoking a pipe, and he's clearly struggling with an English accent. Whereas in his scenes with the Poe Collector is played by Peter Cushing, who also has to act drunk. And Cushing acting drunk is actually, nevertheless, is still incredibly elegant and urbane, whereas uh, uh, Palance just looks awkward and uneasy trying to carry on with his accent. So overall, the film is it's not a complete disaster. It has problems clearly, but it struggles to maintain a pace. It particularly struggles with its ending, where we have the climax of the Poe story and then several twists in very rapid succession, almost one every few seconds, to resolve the framing story, which I actually had to ask the person I was watching the movie with to explain what was going on, um, which is not something that happens with the other films. They have a much more elegant through line. I think the problem with this is that the film is based on a series of stories by Robert Bloch, who adapted them himself. Bloch is best known for writing the original novel on which Psycho was based, and he clearly had problems with his ideas of what Hollywood was like, and all these young people coming in now. And I think there's some more editorial control should have been exercised over the script. It's not terrible, as I say, but if you're looking for something along these lines, then there are other films in the series that would serve you a lot better.